The mysterious fruit. Dr. Adam Carter wiped the sweat from his forehead. The twin suns of Cipher 9 burned hot above him. His ship had crashed on this alien planet 6 months ago, and now he was the only human here. He had learned to survive, finding water and food, but the real challenge was the alien villagers. The Xipherans were tall, blue-skinned beings with large black eyes. They were not hostile, but they were not exactly friendly either. They mostly ignored him, treating him like an outsider. Only Lyra, a young Xipheran girl, spoke to him sometimes. One day, as Adam walked near the village fields, he saw Lyra sitting on the ground, looking frustrated. In front of her were small, round fruits, like coconuts but much smaller and weaker. The plants around them looked thin and unhealthy. Lyra looked up and sighed. "They are dying." Adam crouched beside her. "What's wrong with them?" She picked up one fruit and squeezed it. The shell cracked too easily, and inside was a tiny amount of dry, tasteless pulp. "Our food is getting weaker every season. Soon, we will have nothing left." Adam frowned. He had noticed before that the Xipherans were thinner than they should be, their faces tired and weak. If their food was dying, they were in serious trouble. He picked up the fruit and studied it. "Back on Earth, we had ways to make food grow bigger and stronger." Lyra's eyes widened. "You know how to fix this?" Adam wasn't sure. Earth had advanced farming techniques, better soil, fertilizers, crossbreeding, but this was an alien planet. Would human knowledge even work here? "I can try," he said. Lyra hesitated. The elders do not like change. They believe nature must not be altered. Adam sighed. This was the same problem humans had thousands of years ago. Old traditions often stood in the way of progress, but if they did nothing, the Xipherans would starve. He looked at Lyra. "Do you want to save your people or not?" She bit her lip, then nodded slowly. "Tell me what to do." "The experiment begins." Adam spent the next few days studying the soil. He dug up samples, crushed leaves, and tested different ways of watering the plants. The Xipherans had been using the same methods for centuries, but Adam knew better ways to grow crops. He explained things to Lyra. "On Earth, we mix nutrients in the soil. We also change how much sunlight plants get. That helps them grow bigger." Lyra listened carefully, but she looked worried. "If this does not work, the elders will blame you." Adam chuckled. "I've been blamed for worse." Together, they picked a small section of land to test Adam's ideas. He dug deeper, mixed in crushed minerals from nearby rocks, and poured water carefully at the right times. The villagers watched him from a distance, whispering among themselves. The elders did not approve. One of them, an old Xipheran named Varish, walked up to Adam. His face was stern. "You should not interfere. The plants grow as they are meant to." Adam met his gaze. "But they are dying." Varish's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps it is their time." He turned and walked away. Adam clenched his fists. These people would rather starve than change. A strange discovery. Days passed. Adam and Lyra checked the plants every morning. At first, nothing seemed different. The other villagers laughed at them, calling it a waste of time. Then, one morning, Lyra gasped. "Look at this!" One of the coconuts had grown bigger than the others. It was still small, but it was thicker, rounder, and heavier than before. Adam grinned. "It's working." Lyra smiled for the first time in days. "Maybe you really can help us." But that night, something strange happened. Adam woke up to a faint blue glow outside his tent. He stepped out and saw the test plants glowing softly in the dark. His heart pounded. This was not normal. Lyra appeared beside him, her face pale. "The plants, they have never done this before." Adam touched one of the glowing fruits. It felt warm. What had he done? The experiment begins. Adam Carter stood before the small patch of land where he and Lyra had planted the experimental crops. The twin suns of Sci-Fi cast an eerie red glow over the field, making the tiny sprouting plants look almost alien. They weren't just plants anymore. They were an experiment that could change an entire civilization. He crouched and ran his fingers through the soil. It felt different, richer, more alive. His modifications were working, but something else was happening. A few feet away, Lara watched him with wide, uncertain eyes. They are glowing. Adam had seen it too. At night, the coconuts emitted a soft blue shimmer, pulsing faintly as if they had absorbed the strange energies of the planet itself. No plant should do that, not naturally. He picked up one of the earlier fallen fruits and examined it under the dimming sunlight. It was denser, heavier, as if it had absorbed something new, something unnatural. This shouldn't be possible, Adam muttered. He had studied plants on Earth, but this was something entirely different. Lara knelt beside him, running her slender fingers over the glowing skin of a coconut. "The elders will not allow this," she whispered. Adam looked at her. "We can't stop now." Breaking the rules of nature. The days passed, and Adam noticed more changes. The coconuts were growing faster, too fast. Their shells became harder, their leaves darker and sharper. Even the ground around them seemed more fertile than before. Lara and Adam spent their mornings carefully tending to the plants, adding water at the right times, shifting their position for optimal sunlight. But it was the nights that worried Adam the most. Because at night, the coconuts pulsed with life. One evening, Adam held one of the ripened fruits in his hand, watching the light flicker beneath its shell. "I don't understand," he said. "I only changed the soil and water levels. I didn't add anything unnatural." Lara sat beside him, staring at the glowing fruit with a mix of fear and awe. "Maybe you did something else without knowing. Maybe the planet itself is reacting." Adam frowned. Could it be? Sci-Fi was a strange world, filled with unexplored mysteries. If the soil contained unknown energy, then his farming techniques might have awakened something hidden inside the plants. Lara looked around nervously. "The elders are suspicious. If they find out." Adam sighed. "Then we need to prove that this is helping your people before they shut us down." A forbidden harvest. Despite their fears, Adam and Lara continued the experiments in secret. The coconuts were now double their normal size, and their inner pulp was richer, more nutritious. When Lara tasted one, she gasped. "It's stronger. It's like I can feel the energy inside me." Adam watched her carefully. "What do you mean?" She shook her head, uncertain. "It's different. I feel lighter." That worried him. Food wasn't supposed to change how you felt. It was supposed to nourish, not enhance. Determined to get answers, Adam cut open a glowing coconut and analyzed its core. He pressed his fingers into the thick, soft pulp and noticed something odd. A faint static charge ran through it, tingling against his skin. "This isn't just food anymore," he murmured. "This is something else." That night, while Adam was finishing his notes, a commotion erupted outside. Caught in the act. Voices, angry voices. Adam rushed outside and saw a crowd gathered near the experimental field. Lara stood frozen in place, her face pale. The elders had arrived. Varish, the oldest and most respected of them, stepped forward, his dark eyes cold and sharp as they locked onto Adam. "What have you done?" Varish's voice was low, dangerous. Adam glanced at Lara. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The elder reached down and picked up one of the glowing coconuts. The moment his fingers touched it, the glow intensified. The villagers gasped and murmured among themselves. Varish turned to Adam. "You have corrupted nature." Adam felt his heart pound. This was bad. Really bad. "No," he said, stepping forward. "I improved it. Your food was dying, and I made it stronger." Varish's expression darkened. "And what else have you changed?" Adam hesitated. He didn't have an answer. Lara finally spoke. He saved us." The villagers looked at her in shock. Varish lifted the coconut and crushed it in his palm. A spark of energy cracked through the air as the pulp splattered onto the ground. Everyone stepped back in fear. Varish's gaze burned into Adam's. "You are playing with forces you do not understand, human. If this continues, you will be exiled, or worse." The crowd slowly backed away, leaving only Adam and Lyra standing by the glowing plants. Adam clenched his fists. They were too afraid to see the truth. Lyra grabbed his arm. "What do we do now?" Adam stared at the broken coconut, the flickering light dimming in its ruined shell. "We don't stop," he said. "We find out what's really happening before it's too late." The first supersized coconut. Adam Carter paced in his small tent, staring at the data he had collected. Numbers and notes were scrawled across his makeshift journal, but none of it made sense. The coconuts weren't just growing bigger, they were changing in ways he couldn't explain. Glowing plants, electrified pulp, a strange energy that seemed to affect Lyra's senses. This wasn't simple agriculture. Something unnatural was happening. Outside, the village remained silent. After Varish's warning, Adam knew he had very little time before the elders decided to act against him. If they destroyed the crops before he could figure out what was happening, everything would be lost. Then came the knock. Adam turned, expecting Lyra, but when he pulled open the tent flap, his eyes widened. It was another villager, a Sci-Fi man with sharp features and worried eyes. In his hands, he held something wrapped in cloth. "You must come," the villager whispered. "Now." Adam frowned but followed. As they moved through the village, he realized they weren't heading to the experimental field. Instead, the villager led him behind a row of large rock formations, hidden from view. And that's when Adam saw it. A coconut the size of a boulder. An impossible discovery. Adam froze in disbelief. The coconut wasn't just bigger than normal. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of a regular one. The outer shell had deep cracks, and from within, a soft blue light pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyra stood nearby, her face pale. "I didn't do this," she whispered. Adam stepped forward and placed a hand on the smooth, warm surface. It was vibrating, like it was alive. This isn't possible," he muttered. He glanced at Lyra. "Did anyone eat from this one?" She shook her head quickly. "Not yet. We hid it before the elders could see." Adam exhaled. That was a relief. Whatever was happening, it was accelerating, and they had no idea what would happen if someone ate from it. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small handmade scalpel, a tool he had crafted from saffron bone and sharpened over weeks. Carefully, he pressed the blade into the coconut's cracked shell. The moment the tip made contact, a spark of energy shot through the air. Lyra gasped and stumbled back. The villager dropped the cloth he was holding and ran. Adam held his ground, feeling a strange heat spread from the coconut to his fingertips. And then, it split open. The core of power. The inside of the coconut was nothing like before. The usual soft, milky white pulp was replaced with something different. A core of blue liquid, swirling and glowing, hovered inside the shell, completely untouched by gravity. Adam reached out, but before he could touch it, Lyra grabbed his wrist. "Don't." He turned to her, confusion in his eyes. "This is not just food anymore," she whispered. "This is something else." Adam hesitated. He knew she was right. This was not normal evolution, not normal growth. This was power. He pulled his hand back, thinking fast. If the elders saw this, they'd destroy it immediately. But if they could study it, figure out why it was changing, they might be able to help the entire village. Or it could be dangerous. Lyra touched her forehead, looking dazed. "I feel strange," she admitted. Adam's heart pounded. Was the coconut affecting her already? Then came the sound of footsteps. Heavy. Many of them. The elders were coming. The confrontation. Varish led the group, his dark robe billowing as he approached. The moment he laid eyes on the massive coconut and its glowing core, his expression turned into pure horror. "You have gone too far." The other villagers gasped. Some looked frightened, others curious. Adam stepped forward. "This isn't what you think." Varish raised a hand, silencing him. "You do not understand what you have done," the elder growled. He pointed at the glowing core. "This is not food. This is corruption." Adam clenched his fists. "It's change, and change isn't always bad." Varish's expression hardened. "Then prove it." He turned to the gathered villagers. "Who among you will eat this fruit and show us that it is safe?" The crowd murmured in unease. No one stepped forward. But then, Lyra did. "I will." Adam's heart stopped. "Lyra, no." But she ignored him. She reached down, scooped a small portion of the glowing pulp onto her fingers, and placed it in her mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her body shuddered. "The change begins." Lyra gasped, her eyes widening with shock. She stumbled back, clutching her arms as her skin flickered with tiny pulses of light. The villagers stepped back in fear. Adam ran to her. "Are you okay?" Lyra's breath was ragged. She lifted her hands in front of her face, and Adam saw something incredible. Her fingers were vibrating, moving too fast for the eye to follow. She clenched her fists, and a small gust of wind rippled outward, shaking the nearby trees. Adam's mind raced. Increased strength, energy manipulation. This wasn't just improved nutrition. This was enhancement. Varish looked horrified. "This is a curse." Adam shook his head. "No, this is evolution." The crowd was divided. Some looked at Lyra in awe, others in fear. Then Varish turned back to Adam. His voice was cold. "For this crime against nature, you will be exiled." Adam's stomach dropped. Lyra grabbed his hand. "No, he saved us." But it was too late. The decision had been made. As two guards stepped forward to seize Adam, a loud, unnatural roar echoed from the jungle beyond the village. The ground trembled. Something big was coming, and Adam had a feeling that whatever it was, it wanted the supersized coconuts too. The side effects. Adam Carter had seen many strange things since crash landing on HFY-9. Floating mountains, two-colored sunsets, even the mysterious glowing plants that had changed everything. But nothing compared to what he saw now. Lyra stood in the center of the village, her skin pulsing with energy. Her once dark blue eyes now flickered with golden light. Her breathing was steady, her muscles tense. And she was strong. Too strong. She clenched her fists, and a ripple of energy surged from her body. The nearest coconut trees bent backward as if hit by an invisible force. The villagers gasped, some stepping back in fear, others in awe. Varish, the head elder, looked horrified. "This is what you have done, human," he spat, pointing at Adam. "You have cursed her." Adam's stomach twisted. Was it a curse? Or was this something greater? Then, before he could react, Lyra moved. Not walked. Not ran. She disappeared and reappeared 10 feet away in the blink of an eye. Something is changing. The crowd froze in shock. Lyra looked at her own hands, her breathing quickening. I don't understand," she whispered. "I just thought about moving. And then I was there." Adam's mind raced. Enhanced reflexes. Super speed. This wasn't just better nutrition from the coconuts. It was biological evolution. The fruit wasn't just nourishing them. It was changing their very DNA. But how? Adam stepped forward cautiously. "Lyra, how do you feel?" She looked at him, eyes still glowing. She hesitated, then clenched her fists again. A gust of wind kicked up dust around her feet. "I have too much energy. I could lift a mountain or run across the ocean." Varish's voice cut through the stunned silence. "This is not power. This is a curse." The crowd murmured in agreement. Some whispered about dark spirits, about the old warnings of those who tried to defy nature. Adam turned to them. "No, this is a gift." He pointed at Lyra. "She is stronger, faster. This means your people can survive, can fight off hunger, sickness. She is unnatural." Varish roared. Adam's frustration boiled over. "Your food was dying. Your people were starving. Would you rather waste away because of tradition?" Varish's expression darkened. "We lived for centuries without your interference. Now you have created something you do not understand." The other elders nodded in agreement. And then came the final blow. Varish raised his staff and spoke the words Adam feared the most. "The human must leave." The villagers fell silent. Even Lyra's glowing eyes widened. Adam was being exiled. Exiled and hunted. Adam barely had time to gather his supplies before the guards arrived. 2 heavily armed Sifrin warriors stood at his tent, weapons drawn, their expressions cold. He wasn't going to be executed, but he was no longer welcome in the village. Lyra argued with Varish. She pleaded, shouted, even threatened to fight for him. But in the end, the elders' decision stood. Adam was taken to the edge of the jungle and given only a water pack and a single knife. "Do not return," one of the warriors growled, "or we will not be so merciful." Adam held his head high as he walked into the darkness. He didn't look back. He couldn't. But as he disappeared into the alien wilderness, he wasn't alone. A shadow moved behind him. Silent, unseen, watching. Something was following him. The true side effect. As the village tried to return to normal, Lyra felt restless. Her body still hummed with power. She couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop thinking about how different she felt. She could hear things she shouldn't. She could see further than ever before. And then, she felt something else. A presence, something watching from the jungle. It wasn't Adam. And it wasn't human. Lyra's skin tingled with instinctual fear. Something was out there. Something was hungry. Her fingers twitched. For the first time in her life, she felt like a predator. She turned her gaze to the jungle, her golden eyes narrowing. If something was coming for them, she was ready. The village revolts. The night was unnaturally silent. No wind, no rustling leaves. Even the insects that usually chirped in the jungle were gone. Lyra stood at the edge of the village, her glowing golden eyes fixed on the tree line. She could feel it. Something was watching. Something hungry. The moment she had eaten the supersized coconut, her body had changed. She was faster, stronger, more aware of everything around her. But with that new power came something else, a connection to the world in a way she had never felt before. And right now, that connection was screaming a warning. She took a step forward, her fingers twitching with raw energy. If something was coming, she needed to be ready. But before she could act, the village erupted into chaos. The fear of power. Shouts rang out from the village center. Lyra turned, her enhanced hearing picking up every whisper of fear and anger. The villagers were arguing about her. She moved instantly, reaching the crowd in seconds. No one even saw her arrive until she spoke. "What's happening?" The circle of villagers turned to her. Some stepped back in fear, their eyes locked on the faint golden glow pulsing beneath her skin. Varish, the head elder, stood at the center, his expression grim. "Your presence has already divided our people," he said, his voice like cold steel. "Some believe you are our savior. Others believe you are a curse." Lyra's fists clenched. "This power can help us. Why can't you see that?" Varish's eyes narrowed. "Because you are not the first." A cold silence fell over the crowd. Lyra's heart pounded. "Not the first." Varish gestured to one of the oldest villagers, an elder woman with deep scars across her arms. She stepped forward slowly, her eyes hollow. "Long ago, before we had records, there were others like you," she said. "They ate from the forbidden growth." Lyra swallowed hard. What happened to them? The woman's face darkened. They became something else. Something monstrous. A murmur of fear spread through the villagers. Liara shook her head. No, this was different. She could control this. The unexpected threat. The ground trembled beneath Liara's feet as the monstrous creature charged. Its massive, scaled body radiated the same eerie glow as the supersized coconuts. Each step it took shattered the earth, sending cracks through the ground. Liara had no time to think. She moved on instinct, her enhanced body reacting before her mind could catch up. In a blur of motion, she leaped high into the air, soaring over the beast's head, just as its claws sliced through the spot where she had stood. The villagers screamed in terror. Warriors hurled spears, but they bounced harmlessly off the creature's thick, glowing hide. It was too fast, too strong, and worst of all, it was intelligent. Adam, watching from the shadows, felt his stomach twist. It's been feeding on the coconuts just like Liara. And now, it's evolved. A battle like no other. Liara landed lightly on a boulder, her golden eyes locked onto the monster. The creature snarled, its glowing veins pulsing, mirroring her own. It recognized her, not as prey, but as a rival. It lunged again, its massive claws cutting through stone as it tried to tear her apart. But Liara was faster. She sidestepped at the last moment, spinning and driving her fist into the beast's side. A shockwave erupted on impact. The entire village shook from the force of the blow. The creature skidded backward, digging deep trenches into the dirt. For the first time, it staggered. The villagers gasped. They had never seen anything, or anyone, strong enough to physically knock back a jungle predator. Liara was winning. But the creature was not finished. With a deafening roar, it crouched low, and then vanished. Liara's heart stopped. Where did it go? Then, BM. A crushing force slammed into her from behind, sending her flying through the air. She crashed through 3 trees before finally rolling to a stop, groaning in pain. The beast reappeared, its golden eyes glowing brighter than before. Adam's blood ran cold. It was learning. It had just used super speed, just like Liara. The village faces extinction. Varish, the head elder, watched in horror. This wasn't just an animal anymore. It was something unnatural, something created by the same corrupt energy that had infected Liara. He turned to the warriors. We must flee. But one of the younger villagers stepped forward, shaking his head. No, he said. We fight. For the first time, Varish saw doubt in their eyes. Liara had defeated the warriors effortlessly. She was stronger than all of them. And yet she wasn't the real threat. This beast was. The villagers had 2 choices. Run or fight. Adam's gamble. Adam had never been more afraid. But he also knew something no one else did. This wasn't just an accident. The coconuts had transformed Liara, but this creature had been eating them for weeks. If it kept evolving, it wouldn't just kill Liara. It would destroy the entire village. Adam ran toward the fields, dodging panicked villagers. He had an idea. A dangerous, reckless idea. If the coconuts could enhance physical strength, then what would happen if he used his knowledge to change them even more? He skidded to a stop beside the experimental crops, his hands working frantically. Think, Adam, think. On Earth, farmers modify plants to be stronger, more resistant. What if he reversed the effect? What if he made the fruit into a poison instead? His fingers shook as he mixed different minerals into the soil, using his limited resources to create something completely new. A fruit that didn't enhance, but weakened. He only had minutes before it was too late. Liara's last stand. Liara pulled herself to her feet. Her entire body ached. The beast circled her slowly, its eyes burning with intelligence. She couldn't win this alone. Taking a deep breath, she turned to the warriors. Help me. They hesitated. Varish scowled. You are the reason this monster exists. Liara's golden eyes flashed. Then I will be the one to end it. The warriors exchanged glances. Then one of them, a young warrior, barely older than Lyra, stepped forward. "I will fight." Another stepped forward. Then another, until half the village stood at Lyra's side. Varish looked stunned. And then, without warning, the beast attacked again. The final plan. Adam sprinted back toward the battlefield, a single glowing coconut in his hands. But this one was different. It had absorbed the new minerals, changing it, reversing its effects. Adam had created the antidote. But how would he get the creature to eat it? His heart pounded as he saw the battle unfolding. Lyra dodged and weaved, her movements a blur. The warriors worked together, stabbing at the monster's legs, distracting it, slowing it down. But it wasn't enough. The beast was too powerful. Adam made a decision. He turned to the warriors. "Get its mouth open." Lyra didn't question him. She moved in a flash, slamming her fists into the beast's side, forcing it to stumble. The warriors attacked as one, stabbing at its joints, forcing its massive jaws to open. Adam didn't think. He ran straight at the creature and threw the poisoned coconut directly into its mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the beast shuddered. Its glowing veins dimmed. Its muscles twitched. It staggered backward, eyes flickering. And then, with a final, broken roar, it collapsed. Dead. The power of human innovation. The monster lay still, its glowing veins dimming as the energy bubbled from its massive body. The village, once filled with fear and division, stood in stunned silence. For the first time in generations, they had fought back against the jungle. And won. Adam Carter's chest heaved as he stood over the fallen beast. His fingers were still tingling from throwing the modified coconut, his last gamble. But it had worked. The fruit had been altered, its effects reversed to drain the energy instead of enhancing it. The same fruit that had made the monster unstoppable had just killed it. And now, the village had to decide what came next. The aftermath of power. The warriors slowly lowered their weapons. Some still trembled, unable to process what had happened. Others stared at Lyra, whose golden eyes still faintly glowed. She had led the fight. She had become something new, and that terrified them. Varish, the elder who had fought so hard to resist change, took a slow step forward. He looked at the fallen beast, then at Lyra, then at Adam, and when he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "What have you done?" Adam wiped the sweat from his forehead. "We saved you." Varish's jaw tightened. "You changed everything." Silence. Then a voice rose from the crowd. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." Adam turned, surprised. It was one of the younger villagers, the same one who had refused to run during the battle. He stepped forward, looking at Lyra with both awe and respect. "The jungle was killing us, starving us, weakening us. You saw it, elder." Lyra proved that we don't have to be weak anymore. More murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, some hesitated. And Varish saw it. He was losing control. His way of life, the traditions he had protected for so long, were breaking apart. He turned to Adam, his eyes burning with frustration. "You meddled in things you did not understand." Adam crossed his arms. "I understood enough to save your lives." Varish exhaled sharply. He looked around at the gathered villagers, at the faces that no longer carried blind faith in his words. For the first time, Varish had no answer. The village divided. The next few days were tense. The villagers argued among themselves. Some still feared the new power, believing the coconuts had cursed them. Others, especially the younger generation, believed it was a gift, a way forward. And Lyra was caught between two worlds. She had felt the power surging inside her. She had seen what it could do, the good and the bad. But was she still the same person? She found herself standing alone in the jungle, staring at the place where the beast had fallen. Adam found her there, leaning against a tree. "You okay?" he asked. She let out a small laugh. "I don't know." She turned to face him, her golden eyes flickering in the dim light. "I can still feel it, Adam. The power, the energy, like it's part of me now." Adam nodded, folding his arms. "I think it is." She swallowed. "What if the elders are right? What if this is dangerous?" Adam studied her carefully. Power is only dangerous when it's uncontrolled. He gestured toward the village. "You just saved these people. That's not a curse, Lyra. That's a choice." She looked away, uncertain. Adam sighed. "Look, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I know one thing." She glanced up. "What?" He smiled. "You're not alone in this." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, finally, she smiled back. The elders' decision. Varish and the remaining elders met in the sacred hall, debating what should be done. Some still called for the destruction of the coconuts. Others wanted Adam gone, but even the most fearful among them couldn't deny the truth. Without Adam, without Lyra's new strength, they would all be dead. Finally, Varish rose to speak. "We will not destroy the crops." Gasps. Some elders protested. Others nodded solemnly. Varish continued. "The jungle has changed, and so must we." He turned to Adam. "You will stay." Adam raised an eyebrow. "That sounded painful for you to say." Varish's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Then he turned to Lyra. "But you must be careful. You are strong now, but strength does not make one wise." Lyra held his gaze. "Then I will learn." A long silence followed. Then Varish nodded once. It was done. A new future begins. The village had changed. The experimental crops were no longer seen as cursed. Instead, they were studied, cultivated with care. Lyra trained with the warriors, learning to control her strength. Adam worked with the farmers, modifying the soil to perfect the coconuts, making sure they helped without creating more monsters. For the first time in Cyphern history, the people were evolving. And Adam had gone from an outsider to a legend. He had done what no other species had dared to do. He had changed an entire civilization. And as he stood beside Lyra, watching the next generation of crops grow, he wondered, what would happen next? Because if one thing was certain, this was only the beginning.